This week on Africa Weekly, we focus on South Africa, where 25 years since the end of apartheid, pupils have been opening up to the wounds of the past. And we travel to Soweto, where a new generation of classical musicians is emerging. But first, a summary of the stories that made the headlines this week. African leaders gathered in Egypt on Tuesday for summit talks on the upheavals in Sudan and Libya. President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi called for a coherent regional response as strongman Khalifa Haftar's forces bear down on Tripoli and as protests continue in Khartoum despite the toppling of Omar al-Bashir earlier this month. Protest leaders in Sudan had called for 1 million people to march on Thursday, with judges announcing they would join the sit-in for the first time. On the eve of the march, the Alliance for Freedom and Change and Sudan's Military Council, which took power after Bashir was deposed, announced that they had reached an agreement on most of the protesters' demands. And near the Libyan capital, Tripoli, Libyans attended the funeral of 3 anti-Haftar fighters who were killed on Tuesday. Strongman Haftar's Libyan National Army launched an offensive against Tripoli, the seat of the internationally recognized Government of National Accord, on April 4th. The battle in the south of the capital between the LNA and forces aligned with the GNA has so far left more than 260 people dead and displaced more than 35,000 people. Egyptians voted on constitutional changes this week that could keep President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi in power until 2030. Officials said that more than 88% of ballots cast were for yes. Sisi became president in 2014 and was re-elected in 2018 after eliminating all serious political competitors. The sweeping changes will extend his current term until 2024 and will also give him the right to stand for another 6-year term. Other controversial amendments on the ballot include boosting his control over the judiciary and giving the military even greater influence in Egyptian political life. Devastating floods in South Africa have left more than 50 people dead and forced more than 1,000 people from their homes. Heavy rains lashed the southeast of the country on Tuesday, tearing down homes and ravaging infrastructure in KwaZulu-Natal and Eastern Cape provinces.
So when I came and I see everything demolished, it just broke me. It was bad. So as a family, we seriously hurt, and my sister was trying to build a home for herself and her kids. So she left 2 kids who are staying with me at the moment.
President Cyril Ramaphosa vowed that the government will set aside emergency funding to help survivors rebuild their lives. A powerful cyclone smashed into northern Mozambique barely a month after a superstorm slammed into the country's center. Category 3 cyclone Kenneth, packing winds of 160 kilometers an hour, struck the north coast's Cabo Delgado province late on Thursday after swiping the Comoros Islands, where the government says that at least 3 people have died. Malawi spearheaded large-scale pilot tests for the world's most advanced experimental malaria vaccine on Tuesday, in a bid to prevent the disease that kills hundreds of thousands across Africa each year. After more than 3 decades in development and almost $1 billion in investment, the cutting-edge trial will be rolled out in Malawi's capital Lilongwe this week, and then in Kenya and Ghana next week. It aims to immunize 120,000 children aged 2 years and under to assess the effectiveness of the pilot vaccine and whether the delivery process is feasible.
These South African students are in history class, but it's not just any history class. Today, the students at this sought-after girls' school in Cape Town are learning about the apartheid. They may be too young to have lived through the 46-year period of racial divide, but it still casts a shadow over their lives.
I still feel kind of guilty sometimes that this happened. Like, I don't have any I didn't do anything directly, but it's just, like, as a country.
There's a lot of stuff that we don't talk about because we think it's too heavy of a topic, but really it is a discussion that needs to happen.
Teaching history is not mandatory at all ages in South African schools. For For the final 3 high school grades, the choice of whether to teach it and how to teach it is left to the discretion of individual establishments. 100 kilometres to the east in the village of Worcester, another apartheid history class is underway. But here, the focus is also on the modern day and lingering signs of division.
If you go, it's about 500 meters from here. You say a shanty town, but when you go to white areas, you don't see them. So that's part of the question they will be asking you. Why are we like living like this and them like this? So it's still the lickers.
During his class, Milton Changwa recounts tales of his day-to-day life under the apartheid. Certain stories resonate with his pupils today.
It's just smooth right now because nobody is like standing against it so that like it doesn't get exposed, if you know what I'm trying to say. But facing the fact that whites are still superior than blacks. Looking like blacks owned businesses. How many black owned businesses do you know, man? If you know what I'm trying to say.
The ruling party in South Africa wants to make history lessons compulsory across all ages. It's hoped that a greater understanding of past injustices will help the country get closer to Nelson Mandela's dream of a united rainbow nation.
Xolani picked up a violin for the first time 3 years ago, and since then, classical music has become his passion. The 16-year-old South African lives in Soweto with his great-grandmother because his mother, a drug addict, is rarely around.
It helped me to forget about the situation that I'm in, especially my background. Yeah, and about schoolwork also. It distressed me.
5 times a week he goes to Buskaid, a music school in the heart of Soweto. It was opened by Rosemary Nelden in 1997 after the end of apartheid. For this 75-year-old English violinist, music is not just about getting neighborhood kids off the street. Sometimes it's about finding a special talent like Xolani.
So I got a violin out and stuck it under his chin, and I could see almost immediately that it just fitted, it worked. He's physically very talented, and he's musical.
During apartheid, playing classical music was a skill mostly reserved for white South Africans. But for more than 20 years, Rosemary has worked to address this injustice, and she does so with painstakingly high standards. But the hard work pays off.
At first, maybe the first few months or years for some, you could say she's very strict and you can't handle her, but as time goes on, you get to see why she does this the way she does it, because that's the only way you're gonna get it, you know.
Through hours of work and determination, 19-year-old Mzwandile became first violin. His next dream? To join a prestigious international orchestra away from Soweto.
Nigeria hosted the 6th edition of Gidi Fest last weekend. The festival, which was held in the Nigerian capital Lagos, brought together artists and DJs in Nigeria and other parts of Africa for music lovers.
What Nigerians is doing with our talent, you know, with our vision, soon we are going to be unbeatable in the whole world.
South African athletes Bongmusu Mthembu and Gerda Steyn took top honours in the 50th edition of the Two Oceans Marathon on Saturday. Due to threats of protests, the marathon had to take a different route and went through a mountain pass in the Cape Peninsula. That's all from us at Africa Weekly. Until next week.